Hello and welcome to your next job. This week we've been thinking about lemurs and you've been planning a lovely lemur lunch. For today's job we're going to be making some bunting to take to that lemur lunch. For this job we're going to use all the muscles in our fingers and make them nice and strong, because if we have strong muscles in our fingers that helps us with our writing. We're going to be colouring and cutting and pegging, and all those jobs help to strengthen those muscles. So let's get going. But before we do, I have a question for you. Can you remember where Andy went to see all those lemurs? What was the name of the country? Can you remember? Well done, Madagascar. And here is a flag from Madagascar. And we're going to use this flag to make our bunting. Let me show you how. So for this job, you need this piece of paper out of purple mash and something to colour with. You could use crayons or felt tips or paint. Now the first thing you need to do is just to roughly cut out the flag shapes. I've done that already. Here is one of those flag shapes. Now, if you remember, on the flag of Madagascar, the top section is red, and the bottom section is green, and the section on the side we're going to leave white. Now you have to choose if you're going to use crayons or felt tips or paint. I think I'm going to use paint this morning just to show you, and I'm going to use a very thin paintbrush so that I can be sure I paint it as carefully as possible. Now have a think. How are you going to hold that paintbrush? Are you going to hold it like that? No. Are you going to hold it like that? No. I'm going to hold it in exactly the same way that I would hold a pencil. And that way I can be as careful as I possibly can and make sure my paint goes in the right space. Here we are. Not going to put too much paint on my brush. And very carefully making sure I've got the bottom section. I'm going to colour it in green. Very carefully. I'm not going to rush. I'm going to do it as carefully as I can, holding my paintbrush in the same way that I would hold a pencil. And because I've cut it into a smaller shape now, I can move the piece of paper around. And that you might like to do the same, because it makes it easier to paint accurately and get into those corners. Now you might have spotted the other thing I'm doing is I'm painting the edges first. That's another little tip. If you paint the edges first, it's easier, and then you can just paint the middle bit at the end. Right into those corners. Right into the corners over here. A bit more paint perhaps. Not too much. Right into that corner too. Turn it round again and paint across the top. You see, I'm still holding my paintbrush as if I were holding a pencil. And actually, while I'm doing this, this is helping the muscles in my fingers to get nice and strong. And then the middle section. There we are. Painting that part as well. No gaps. Don't like any gaps when we're painting or colouring. Good. Let's turn that round so it's the right way up. So that is a good start. I've painted the bottom section in green. And now, of course, I would change my paintbrush and change my paint and paint the top section in red. But luckily, I've got one I've done already. Here it is. Here's one I've already done. The bottom part is green, the top part is red, and the bit on the edge I'm going to leave white, so it looks just like the Madagascar flag. So the next part of the process is to very carefully cut out your flag shape. Now this is nice and dry now, so I can cut it out. Let's have a think about how we hold a pair of scissors. Remember, your thumb goes in the top, and one or two fingers goes in the space underneath, and that's a good way to hold a pair of scissors. Your other hand is useful too, because that can hold the piece of paper that you're cutting, and again, thumb on top of your scissors, thumb on top of your piece of paper. Now we're ready to go. And very carefully going to cut along that line. Don't rush it. Make sure you're cutting exactly on the line, right to the end. Oh, that's the first side done. Turn it round, thumb back on the top, fingers quite a long way away from the scissors. Keep them safe, and off we go again. There we are, sticking on the line, right to the end, and off it goes. Side number 3. Off we go again. Thumb on the top of the scissors and the piece of paper, cutting right to the end. Yes, I'm cutting quite quickly because I've had quite a lot of practice at cutting. You do it slowly and carefully, you will perhaps make a better job of it. Last side, right to the end, and we're done. And there we are. There's another bit of bunting to go on our line of bunting for our lovely lemur lunch. Let's use a peg now to add it to my line. So let's add our new piece of bunting to the string of bunting that I made earlier. I'm going to slide them across, make a bit of room. There they are. This one I used wax crayons. This one's paint. This one's paint. And this one was the felt tips. And now let's use the peg to put the last one on the line. Remember getting those muscles going again. Open up the peg and attach your piece of bunting. There it is, the 5th piece of bunting in the line. Now you can make as much bunting as you like. You might just print out one of those pieces of paper on purple mash, or you might want to print out 2. You can choose. But whatever you do, when you've made your bunting and you've set it all up for your lovely lemur lunch, ask a grown-up to take a photograph of it and upload it onto Evidence Me. Have fun. Off you go.